On today's episode,
if I were eating ice cream every day and then I had that, I'd be like, this is terrible. I hate this. And what was happening was my diet of choice at the time was actually giving me horrific anxiety. I needed to bring a gentleness back into my life that I didn't have for the 5 years I was on Blindspot. Hooked up to all these machines, and I closed my eyes and I thought, if I wake up from this surgery, I promise to make my life better. I promise to be healthier. I promise to look after myself better.
Delicious. Skinny. Hungry. Cake. Fat. Scale. Nutrition. Fitness. Strength. Longevity. Calories. Body image. Craving. Lose weight.
But what does it all mean?
Hungry. Adjective. Having a strong craving or desire. Stuntgirl. Noun. One who takes calculated risks to yield extraordinary or magical outcomes.
You're listening to the Hungry Stuntgirl podcast.
Here's your host, Heidi Germain Schnappoff.
Well, hello. Welcome to the Hungry Stuntgirl podcast, episode 1. As you just heard, I am Heidi Germain Schnappoff, and I am a professional stuntwoman for film and television. I am also a lover of food, which can be challenging at times considering my career pretty much relies on my physical appearance and physical performance. In addition to being a full-time stunt performer, I am a personal trainer and coach, and I have been for the past nearly 18 years. So today on The Hungry Stunt Girl, I am talking with the woman I've spent the last 4 years of my life working alongside and stunt doubling, Jaimie Alexander. And I thought she would be a great person to chat with, knowing her love of food, knowing how this business can be brutal and make us put these ideas in our own heads about how we need to look and how we need to eat and how we need to act. And she talks about her own struggles with everything from ice cream to alcohol and a near-death experience that actually made her really take control of her health and her life in general. And I hope you enjoy our conversation. I know I certainly enjoyed it. I actually learned some things I did not know about her during this interview. So let's get to it.
Hungry. Stunt Girl.
To say that I was excited to have this person on as my guest today is a gross understatement. She's an actress best known for her roles in Thor and Thor: The Dark World as Lady Sif, as well as Kyle XY as Jesse Holland, and most recently the NBC hit series Blindspot as the series' main character, Jane Doe, among a laundry list of other films and television shows. She was a high school wrestler, which probably contributes to her natural ability to kick ass both on and off screen. She is dedicated to helping others, sometimes to a fault, and probably most admirably, in recent years has dedicated more time to herself and improving her wellness from the inside out. She is a lover of food and cooking and animals and children alike, and she is one of the kindest, most giving people I have ever met. And for 4 years of fighting and falling alongside her, I am lucky enough to also call her my friend. Please welcome my very first guest, Jaimie Alexander.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank
awesome
you so
intro.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this. And I'd like to say for being here, but for being there and having Zoom would be the proper way of saying it, I guess. I was thinking about who I wanted to come onto the show and talk about food because a large part of the reason I started this was my passion for food, but also keeping in mind the fact that I need to look a certain way and perform a certain way for my career. And honestly, you were the first person that popped into mind because you seem to be someone, from what I know, that likes food. I see posting food quite often and not only making it, but buying it. And so I thought this is a perfect fit. Plus, we kind of literally work alongside each other. So
this is true.
So before we even touch on food, just give us a little background on where you came from, maybe a little bit about your family life, and I'll probably interrupt you and ask you about food along the way, but kind of how you got yourself to LA and doing what you do.
Of course. Well, I grew up in the South, in Texas, originally born in South Carolina. Food was always a way that my mother showed love. We didn't have much growing up. We were pretty poor, but she always found really creative ways to feed us. I remember being really young and having a roast chicken with goat cheese and rosemary, and I didn't know anybody else in the second grade that was eating that way, you know. She really got creative with what little we had, and I can give her major props for that. She loves cooking. That's where my love of cooking came from, and I love cooking for others. And I'm sure, Heidi, you remember being at work, and I would always bring in something that I baked or something that I cooked and almost forcibly make other people eat it.
Oh, I still have a mason jar of yours too, but anyway.
See, that's okay. You can have that. That's a little parting gift. But yeah, I grew up with brothers. I grew up cooking for them and taking care of them, and just I've always been like that since I was young. You know, I remember I have one memory that comes to mind right now, that when I was really little, and I don't remember how young I was, but I was trying to make a sandwich and I realized there was only a little bit of meat left, like turkey meat, like sliced turkey, you know, or whatever. And one of my brothers, it was either Brady or David, I can't remember which one it was, wanted a sandwich. And so I made this sandwich and I just gave it to them, even though I was hungry. And it was just one of those things where I was like, that will make me feel better than me eating it myself. Like, I really wanted to feed my brother. And I just remember that. And so that stuck with me into adulthood. And now I love cooking for people and cooking things that are beneficial for their body. Yes, of course, I bake apple pies and those types of things on occasion, but mostly I try to make things that will help people heal from the inside out. And so that's sort of been my hobby / passion on the side of what I do for a living, which is acting. And
you said apple pies occasionally. Do you have a sweet tooth, you think?
I definitely have a sweet tooth. I've had to navigate that because I am somebody who I have chronic inflammation issues in my body. And we all know that sugar is addictive, if not more than cocaine and heroin. And it's a really hard thing to pull yourself off of. And what the body does when it receives sugar is that some people can process it fine when it's occasional, you know, an occasional treat here and there. But my body instantly inflames. It just goes into freak out mode. So I've weighed both different, you know, I'll eat treats occasionally, but I try to make them a special occasion because I know that I am only damaging my body when I put sugar into it. Same with gluten, same with grains for me. Grains are pretty tough. I've started fermenting grains to be able to have them on occasion, and I can talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, I definitely have a sweet tooth, especially, you know, it's caffeine and sugar for me. Those are my drugs of choice. I don't drink and I don't do any other drugs except for caffeine and sugar. But yeah, I'll have, you know, a cup of coffee and some, you've seen it at work, a cupcake or something. They'll bring out and I'll be like, oh, I have to have that because here I am on my 16th hour trying to stay, you know, alert and awake. But now that I have some downtime, I've really been diving into self-healing through meditation and nutrition.
Do you find, or have you found kind of like healthier alternatives to cakes and cupcakes or whatever? Like what would be your go-to sweet if you had no issues?
Well, if I had no issues and I just I had a body like Heidi Klum without trying, I would probably eat ice cream mostly. It's strange. Ever since I got sober a while ago, I tend to only want ice cream as a treat. And I never was into ice cream before. Never. And so that was a hard thing for me to let go of. Wow. And, you know, of course, you know, in the summers, I'm going to have some ice cream when I want it. But the key is moderation. And we are told this so often throughout our lives, but do we really listen? No, because we want instant gratification. We want satisfaction. We want to feel that comfort right away. And the downside of that is too much of anything is too much. So too much of being super healthy and clean is too much. There's a certain amount of I should say crap we need to put in our bodies so that our bodies aren't shocked when we do receive that kind of food. Like, you know, I'd say I was super clean, eating wise and like green shades or whatever you want to visualize clean eating as. No sugar, no carbs, no grains, no whatever. And then I go over to a friend's house and they've made this incredible vegetable lasagna. They want me to have some, and that is their love language. Well, I have that. I get sick for 3 days. It's like, it's all about balance, right? So moderation is key. The substitutes I found for sweet treats, I'll have a bit of dark chocolate. See, I'm blessed because I really like dark bitter chocolate. I know a lot of people only like milk chocolate, and I don't know what I would do if that was the case. But I will, eat it. I'll take a couple frozen strawberries and blend them with some cacao powder and coconut milk, unsweetened coconut milk, and make like a little dessert type of smoothie. But
that sounds good.
Yeah, right. But I gotta say, if I were eating ice cream every day and then I had that, I'd be like, this is terrible. I hate this. So you sort of have to reboot your health. You have to give yourself at least about I'd say a month, if not a little bit more, to be rather strict, and then sort of incorporate back in little treats here and there. Because I tell you, if you've been pretty strict with your diet in a very healthy way, and then you have some bananas or strawberries, it's going to be about the sweetest thing you've ever had. So it's about retraining your taste buds.
When did you start doing this? Was it early on? Was it just in the past, couple of years that you realized, hey, I can have some healthier options for these things that I used to like, and now I know I can't have because my body will hate me? Or,
well, I think, before I started Blindspot 5 years ago, I was relatively healthy with diet. I would eat pretty well. I was always interested in vegetables. I was a vegetarian back then. And just because I wanted to be, it wasn't any other reason than I just didn't really like meat. So I listened to my body and I ate as a vegetarian. And throughout Blindspot, you were there. I got my ass kicked a few times, and
a couple times,
just a few, and my body went up and down in weight. It was constantly in a state of inflammation because my system was constantly in a state of flight or fight, especially on heavy stunt days. And I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. There were a lot of things happening, and I knew the one thing I could control was what I was eating, what I was fueling myself with. And, I went in and out of this, some days I would just be like, screw it, I'm going to have this and that. And then I would go for about a month eating just junk and I would feel terrible. Then I'd clean it up. So it was like this up and down roller coaster of how best should I look after my body. And the problem with it all was that I was so busy that I couldn't find time to actually listen to what my body really needed. And now coming off the series, I've started to explore that more because I want to make sure before I go into my next job that I have a clear routine. I have a clear idea of what works and what doesn't work. And I've used this time of quarantine during this the COVID-19 pandemic to put it to the test, because I am afforded the time now to sleep as much as I want, to try certain things. If I get sick on my stomach, if I get sick on my stomach, no problem. I've got a bathroom right here. No one else is here. But it's like, this trial and error. So I've been cooking a lot. I've been experimenting. Yesterday I tried to make coconut flour cookies with raw dark chocolate, and they turned out like crap. So that was a downer. And so I was like, okay. And so it's about, trial and error and experimenting and that sort of thing. I was able to figure out a great way to make a coconut flour bread. And again, in moderation, I'll have, today I had a little bit with avocado and arugula with sea salt and lemon juice and black pepper. And that was like kind of my morning meal. So yeah, it's just, you want to, it can be really fun. It can be expensive. That's the thing. Trying out different foods, especially if you live alone like I do, you're cooking for one person, it gets pretty pricey. It's a little bit easier in New York to just order in, for one person when it comes to finances. But I found that, I have a freezer. I make things that freeze well, and that's helped out a lot. But yeah, so I've always been interested in holistic healing and food as a way, like nutrition as a way to healing myself. And I've been reading a lot of books that link spirituality with nutrition, and so that you're healing on two different levels, which I think is really important, because I think the reason people don't want to dig into this way of maybe healthier eating and listening to their bodies is because part of their spirit is broken and it's so attached to receiving some sort of, again, satisfaction or gratification or comfort from food.
Mm-hmm. I could definitely see that. You mentioned sleep. So just I was there, so I know how many hours you put in every day, just putting the tattoos on and then doing, working a full day and then having to take it off and then having to go home. So super long days. And the hiatus was between seasons for 5 seasons?
Yeah, it was for me, about 6 weeks between each season, but usually I was in the hospital because I had some stuff happen. My appendix burst, which was a huge wake up call for me. It just further motivated me to get very healthy very quickly. And that was
season.
What season was that? It was season 3 into season 4. Yeah.
And then season 4 was another.
Right. Season 4, I tore my ACL and MCL. I think what ended up happening for me was I was pushing my body too hard and not listening to it. There were many times where I should have said, I don't want to do that, or I can't do this, or, hey, I need some help with this. And I didn't. I really locked it all inside. Again, that's the side of my health on the spirit side, being broken and not setting boundaries. So again, when I talk about healthy nutrition and healthy eating, that includes the spirit side of yourself, really trying to heal that side along with nutrition as well as the physical body.
I mean, it makes sense just based off of one of the first things you were talking about was you had a turkey or whatever in your fridge and you just gave it to your brother. And I kind of feel that totally sets the tone for pretty much the rest of the things that are starting to cause you issues. You just keep good or for bad, you tend to give the shirt off your back and the turkey from your refrigerator, so to speak, and also in all sorts of ways. I mean, I know that you'd show up, and I know this is my experience of it, but it definitely relates to exactly what you're talking about. Feeding your soul, your spirit is sometimes you got to keep a little for yourself, Well, absolutely. It's
that term of putting your mask on so you can help everyone else. You have to make sure that you love yourself before you can love someone else. And I think about it like this. It's not selfish. If you really want to give love to someone else, you really want to love someone else, you want to give them the best and the greatest amount of love that you can muster. Well, you can't do that unless you give it to yourself first. And that's a journey that I've been on my entire life, but more so in the last 2 years. And I'm learning that if I can take good care of myself and I can start from there and I'm centered, then I am so much better equipped to take care of other people. And I think that's, who doesn't want somebody who has a strong center to look after them? If you're a broken person trying to look after another person, it's just not going to go well. You're going to crumble. And even though you have great intentions, it's not going to be beneficial for either person.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. If you're this rickety ladder that someone's leaning on, not good for either of you. So let's go back to what have been your quarantine meals. Like, have you had anything that you kind of been going to, or have you been maybe just exploring more recipes? Because I see you posting every day something amazing, incredible.
Well, thank you. In the beginning, my quarantine meals were not healthy. They were ice cream and pizza, and I had this crazy obsession with just tortilla chips with melted cheese on them. Occasionally some jalapenos. It was just stuff. It wasn't really it wasn't nutritional. That's for certain. And I woke up one morning just feeling really sick. Like, I didn't feel good because not only was I eating terribly, I wasn't exercising because it would be raining or I'd be on the road driving. I was trying to get back to New York right when all this started to happen. And I was just miserable. And what was happening was my diet of choice at the time was actually giving me horrific anxiety. The gut is called the second brain, and that's not, that's not just for fun. It's because it's absolutely true. I'm sure I had a candida overgrowth in my gut. I'm sure I had leaky gut. I'm sure I had, just about everything bad that you can have with the gut. I probably had. Again, my appendix ruptured and went septic. So all those toxins had gone into my organs. So even though it's been...
Just to clarify here, when your system goes septic, most people would probably end up dying if they didn't...
Right.
If they weren't in the hospital having doctors and nurses clear that stuff out, right? Like there was...
Yes.
You were
it was
pretty much
serious.
gonna... if maybe I'm exaggerating, but I feel like you were very close to... If you didn't get to the hospital in time, there's a very good chance that you probably wouldn't have made it, right? I mean, this is like not, it was pretty serious. It wasn't just like, oh, I think I have a stomach ache and, I just take the appendix out. It was like it burst and there was toxins. There were toxins.
It was an intense day. I just remember getting these horrible stomach pains, and I just thought I had eaten, because the day before, I think I got the waffle truck for everybody at work, and I was eating that, just ice cream and waffle. I don't even know. It was one of those days where I was like, I don't care.
Yeah, I heard that you thought it was a waffle.
Oh, I totally did. I thought, I ate like crap yesterday. No wonder I don't feel good. And I think we had a bit of a stunt day that day. I think, were you there? I can't remember.
It was the day that it happened to you, you were just, I think, walking downstairs. So I was picking up my car at the time because my car was in getting repairs, and I was literally at the car place picking up my car, and they're like, can you come in right now? And I'm like, it's rush hour and you're in the Bronx. I'll try.
Yeah, that was intense. I just remember running up the stairs. I had a big machine gun, and we were, and I kept just ignoring the fact that something was wrong, because I thought, well, today, is the one day I get off early, and I was going to go meet a friend, and I was very excited to have what would be essentially a half day, in quotes, a half day of work. And all of a sudden, when we broke for lunch, I realized I couldn't stand up straight, and I was in my trailer, and I caught a look at my face, and I had gone like a very pale green color. And I thought, this is bad. Something is going on. Like, I'm not okay. And I remember then the next thing I remember was in a van getting sent to the ER. And then once I got in there, they were like, they did a CAT scan, and they saw that it had opened, and that some, of the toxins were leaking out, and the doctor said she'd do the best she could. And so that was, by the time I was about to go into surgery, I knew there was no other option. So it's interesting, when my experience is that when you're in a state like that, all fear leaves you, because you realize there is only one choice. Like, you have to have this happen. And I was very scared up until that point. It was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. They say it's worse than childbirth. They were trying to give me morphine. I didn't work. So I just, I was like, don't give me anything else. And I remember saying to God, I remember this was my reconnect moment with God. I was hooked up to all these machines, and I closed my eyes, and I thought, if I wake up from this surgery, I promise to make my life better. I promise to be healthier. I promise to look after myself better. And I did numerous things. I woke up and I felt so happy, and I knew I was going to be okay. And the recovery process from that took about a year. I was pretty sick off and on for about a year afterwards. But I was so grateful to be alive. And that has fueled me today. That experience, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was like, there's a reason I didn't die. There's a reason I'm still here. I chose to stay here, and I'm going to do everything I can to make this second chance everything it should be, everything I want it to be, everything I'm capable of. And one of those things is to try to help people heal. I think that is a huge reason why I was born. And, but with that, also healing myself. I go through, if I give advice to somebody on something healthy to eat, or maybe a certain meditation, I don't give that advice unless I've tried it, unless I've done it. There are times I used to go to work all the time, and some of the people at work would ask me, hey, what are you eating now? Or what can I do to help this headache? Or what can I, and I would tell them, I'm trying something right now, but I'll let you know in about a week how it's working for me, because I've made myself pretty sick sometimes with different techniques of diet techniques. But I remember often helping Ashley by doing Reiki to her, Ashley Johnson. And if she wasn't feeling well. And sometimes I would give health advice to different people. And this is all, stuff that I've obviously tried on myself and that I found that works for me. You have to know that if you read a book about a different way of eating or something that might help you heal if you have lupus or something like that, you have to know that this worked for that person and maybe a few others. But you have to you have to listen to your body when you're doing these things, because you might need a little bit more protein than they're suggesting. You might need a lot less. You might not do well with legumes like me. It's very hard for me to eat legumes unless I cook them in a pressure cooker, which then alters their chemical state and helps me break them down. These are things that I've researched because I'm passionate about it, but I've taken a little bit of everything I've ever tried and sort of crammed it into one and said, this works for me.
For you, that's...
For me, yes.
Pardon the interruption, but I was too excited to wait to tell you about my sponsor, Pittston Ketchup. I actually reached out to them myself because I love their ketchup so much, and I am sure you will too. It is unlike the average supermarket ketchup. It has ingredients you can pronounce, and it tastes like homemade with a slight kick. Pittston Ketchup will give you 10% off your online purchase if you go to PittstonKetchup.com. That's PITTSTON, ketchup, KETCHUP, the way you spell ketchup.com, and use code HungryStuntGirl, all one word, at checkout. Again, that's PittstonKetchup.com, and the code for 10% off your purchase is HungryStuntGirl.
So
you're talking about earlier. You're talking about fermenting grains and soaking and sprouting, and so do you have? Is that something you're doing like right now, or is it just something that you kind of have incorporated recently to be able to have these grains and things like that? Because I know I definitely like a pancake now and then, and sometimes the almond flour just doesn't cut it. Or like what kind of grains are you sprouting and soaking? Because I know you said legumes, and sometimes you can do that with legumes, or like you said something about a pressure cooker. Like what do you do for that?
Well, I was reading a book called Grow a New Body, which is a really cool book. Yeah. Do you know Dr. Alberto? Forgive me, I'm probably not pronouncing his name correctly. Dr. Alberto Villaldo, pardon me again if that's not correct. He's fantastic. He's a shaman, and he's studied the link between nutrition and spirituality. And he talks about a strain of bacterial yeast called S. boulardii. And you can buy these in capsules, and a lot of people will just take them as a probiotic. But what makes it even stronger is to open the capsules and put them in the grains. So what I've done is I've taken, and he suggests this, and again, for clarification, please visit his website or check out the book for further instruction. But what I do is I take 4 cups of very ripe berries. You can use any fruit, but I find berries are just way easier and taste better. 4 cups of very, very ripe berries, so they're very sugary, right? Pretty much the type of berries that the supermarket would toss. You want to grab those.
Super ripe. Got it.
Organic, if possible, obviously. We don't want pesticides. And you will put them in a blender with a cup of water, and you blend it up. And then you put them in a bowl, or I'm sorry, you blend it up, and then you boil it for about, I bring it to a boil for a couple minutes and then kind of let it simmer for about 10 minutes, just to break down all those sugars. And then you transfer that into a bowl and let it come to room temperature. Once it's come to room temperature, you take 2 capsules of S. boulardii probacterial yeast, and you open it. You open the capsules. You sprinkle the inside of the capsule into the berry mixture. Stir it up. So 2 capsules. Then you place it in your oven with just the oven light on, and you're going to leave it in there uncovered for about like 2 to 3 days. You can taste it as it goes. Once you taste it, it's very sour, fermented, does not have a sugary taste. It's ready. And then I take a tablespoon of that in the mornings, and this is something I'll do for about 2 weeks. And it basically, that strain of bacterial yeast eats candida. It gets rid of it. It pushes it out, but it's a beneficial bacterial yeast for the human body. So what you'll do is you would take a very good probiotic with that in the morning. So basically the yeast is going in and eating all the candida, really aggravating it. So you're not going to feel great for the little while that you're doing this. Can make you very bloated if you have sugar in your system already. You want to cut sugar out while you're doing this,
Got it. That makes
anything
sense.
that can turn to sugar, meaning like fruits or grains or any kind of starchy carbs that can turn to sugar in the stomach. You want to cut this out while you're doing this yeast program, so that yeast only feeds off that candida, and basically it'll go through your intestines like a Pac-Man, and what's following the Pac-Man are the probiotics. So you're flushing the bad stuff out of your intestines and replenishing the good bacteria.
Yeah, nice.
So I've been doing that at the moment.
Cool.
But when you ferment rice, though, you basically, I just take, a cup of rice. Brown rice seems to keep its nutrition more intact when you're doing this, but you can use any rice. I mean, that's how I feel. But you can take a cup of brown rice, 2 cups of warm water, room temp warm water, and you mix it together in a bowl, put it in the oven. You'll sprinkle the 2 capsules of Espoulardi, stir it up, put it in the oven overnight, just 24 hours, take it out, cook the rice, eat it. And it's a fermented rice, so the iron content gets higher, a lot of minerals are brought out, and it helps break down the carbohydrate factors that are inflammatory to the human body.
Right. Yeah. It takes eliminates that inflammatory response by doing that. That's great. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for that book just so that people can get that. I just got the guy, Alberto. Cool. So in addition to the foods, so you had appendicitis. You had to repair your gut and your life. You went through a huge life change and you finally got on track. Then you hurt your knee. And which I can't even imagine just mentally how that, of course, the pain was probably super excruciating, but also just knowing you're like, I just got myself back to this position, to this point. What physically are you doing now? Or, have you been coming back to workouts or yoga or, I don't know, like weight training? What kind of, physical things are you doing to kind of support your the healthy eating and all that?
Well, I'll tell you, a couple months ago, I started training really heavy, like I may have done back in my early 20s. I started weightlifting. I started running again, which was tough to start running again after the knee surgery. But it was great because obviously once I accomplished it, I felt great because I was like, oh, I can do this. It's getting stronger. The problem with the way I was training was it was spiking my heart rate in such a way that it was causing a very inflammatory response in my body, like a very overactive inflammatory response. My body was so used to flight and fight mode on the show and being abused, honestly. I mean, you know what that's like, getting hit, getting thrown into a wall, whatever it is. Yeah. You have to combat that, right, with gentleness. Otherwise, your body's just going to freak out. It thinks you're being attacked all the time when you're not. So even though I was doing something that was making me happy and I was feeling stronger, I put on 12 pounds in 3 weeks. Like, my body was so full of inflammation that I wasn't sleeping well. I was getting acne, which I never get.
Hormones, that makes sense.
Yeah, just all of that. It was upsetting my hormones. It was upsetting a lot of stuff. So I had to stop. And I was nervous because I had a job coming up that I was like, I have to be in incredible shape, and this is not working like it used to. So I had to revisit and basically throw out most of the stuff that used to work for me. And a lot of people will do this in their life. They go, oh, but I used to do X, Y, and Z. Well, that's not the present moment. The present moment is it's time to do something different. People, as we get older, our bodies change. We need certain things that maybe we didn't back then, and we need to let go of certain things that we were used to back in the day. So I decided, now with the COVID-19 crisis, it pushed my jobs several months into the future, which is actually quite beneficial for me health-wise, because I needed to take a more gentle approach. I need to show my body, hey, we do get to rest. We are gentle. You don't have to be in fight or flight. You don't have to inflame yourself thinking that, you're never going to eat again, or that you aren't getting enough water, or whatever it may be that it was doing. I needed to bring a gentleness back into my life that I didn't have for the 5 years I was on Blindspot. So I decided to change up my diet like I have. I've cut back on meat quite a bit. I'm trying to give my body things that are very easy to digest things that really are calming. I've started doing a lot of yoga. I've been doing that quite a bit, going for walks, as much as I can when the sun's out, as safely as possible with a mask, as required. But I haven't ran. I haven't spiked my heart too high. I haven't done any of that yet. I'm really just trying to get my inflammation down and out of my system, and the candida out of my system. And once I feel that I'm strongly centered in that, I'll start to up the training a little bit. But again, I might be in the part of my life that yoga, Pilates, and going for a jog is enough.
Right. And you totally touched on like two amazing points there. The first is that you can never, if you keep comparing yourself to what you used to be or what you were like in your 20s, you're comparing to something that just doesn't exist anymore. I mean, absolutely. Just in my own experience, I've been throwing myself down for now 14 years. And I don't recover like I used to in my 20s. I don't need to train like I did in my 20s to yield the same results. I know how my body reacts these days, and it seems as though you've kind of found the same, that now the things that you used to do are just triggering your body in a completely different way and finding different ways to stay strong. Now, I personally, I'm doing different, like I'm doing like kettlebell training and a lot of body weight stuff. So being able to move my body is my number one priority in my line of work. Also resembling the body type of the person that I am doubling, aka Jaimie Alexander. That's where my personal struggles come in, is trying to, make sure I'm the size that I need to be, but also the strength so that you can do the activities required. But that's not just, for me, it's for you, it's for everyone, that everyone wants to have that ideal body image or that ideal way that they'd like to look. And just beating yourself up over what you used to do to be able to look that way is no way to get ahead. And you also said that during the quarantine, you've had that time to reflect. And I think that's super important. And I'm also experiencing that, where I'm sleeping, or I'm at least in my bed for 8 hours a night, which I don't know. What was your sleep schedule like before you were able to sleep more? Generally?
Well, I had terrible times trying to fall asleep. There was a time in my life where I would drink bourbon to fall asleep, and that's how my alcoholism catapulted. It was just something I just couldn't sleep. I would get home and be in some physical, state of physical pain. And I was just like, oh my God, I only have 6 hours to sleep. I have to fall asleep now. And I would drink until I fell asleep. And then as soon as I got up, I would drink a bunch of coffee to wake up. And it's like my poor body was doing the best it could to keep up, but I was doing the wrong actions trying to get a positive result. And I think that, that might go along with Albert Einstein's quote of, that's insanity. Try, doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. It's just not going to happen. So I've taken to meditation. I started doing that in the last season and a half or so of Blindspot, where I would sit down for 20 minutes and meditate, or even 5 minutes. I mean, anything to just try to give myself a couple breaths, a break. And then usually I'd find that I was falling asleep a little bit better. But again, while working on the show, I was probably averaging 6 hours a night, which was not enough for how many hours we were pulling and this, the workload that we had. And that could have been very different. That really could have been different. Again, anytime you're in a high stress situation, find what part of that you can let go. Go through and see what is unnecessary. And you'll find that you have a lot more time than you thought. And that was something I didn't learn how to do until I think season 4 of the show. And that came along with my sobriety, obviously, and the knowledge and experience that I've gone through and gained through sobriety. But now, oh my God, in the first part of quarantine, I was sleeping 12 to 13 hours a night. I could tell the last 5 years just kind of caught up with me. And it was like, hey, this is time. You need to allow your body to rest. And so I started doing that. And now I'm sleeping maybe 8 hours, which is probably what I need. I think I'm somebody who requires quite a bit of sleep.
That's great.
Yeah. So it's been, that's another silver lining to this black cloud.
Even just repairing and recovering, and it's the quality of sleep. Have you noticed that from drinking bourbon to fall asleep to meditating to fall asleep, have you noticed your quality of sleep improve with a different form of relaxation other than chemically induced? I mean, personally, I don't really sleep that soundly if I do drink to get to sleep or have in the past.
Yeah. And, there's no way of knowing that until you've had the both experiences. I thought I was doing great by knocking myself out, making sure I slept the 6 hours that I was given. But as I went forward, I was like, no, because during those 6 hours of sleep, what is my body doing? It's not repairing its cells. It's trying to metabolize the alcohol. Like, I'm not actually getting any kind of recovery or sleep or restoration. And now when I go to sleep, I know that my body is repairing itself and there's a gentleness to it. And I know that when I wake up in the morning, I did a favor to myself while I was asleep. I gave my body what it needed. And the thing is, our bodies, I mean, think about it. Like, we do so many things involuntarily. Our bodies are so incredible. They know how to heal, but if we're giving them the wrong stuff, the wrong information, the wrong food, the wrong lifestyle choices, if we're polluting our systems with that, our body's just going to do the best it can to keep up, but it's not going to operate at top speed like it would if we were really looking after it. And I think that comes with gratitude, being grateful for the vessel you're given. And that comes from not comparing yourself to what you used to be or what someone else is. I mean, comparison is the thief of joy. That is one of my favorite quotes because it is absolutely true. And I try to just be the best version of myself in this present moment. And if that means I have extra pounds, I have extra pounds. But it is what it is. And when you learn to operate in a state of acceptance, you're just going to be so much happier. It's just things are going to happen for you and you're going to see more clearly. And I think that's so important.
That's super important. And you just mentioned something else, obviously not comparing just to yourself, but trying to compare yourself to somebody else. I mean, that's even crazier. It doesn't sound crazy when you really think about it, though. All the magazines and everything that we're supposed to look like, still, even though body image is something that I think it's, people are saying, like, embrace yourself, this, that, the other thing, but there are still magazines of people, photoshopped and touched up, and they're not real. And it's still very much an issue, especially for young girls who see this stuff. And I just wish that there were a little bit less of that going on. But
a good thing that I do, that I just started doing, and I came up with this, I wrote down several ways to practice self-care and self-love, because I too struggle with that. I think for people, for anybody to say they've never struggled with it, they're probably the ones that are hurting the most.
Absolutely.
I write down when I'm having a really tough day and I find myself in a trap of negative thinking, or I'm putting myself down, or I'm saying, oh, I have this deadline, I have to look like this before. I put that shit on myself. Like, nobody says I have to look a certain way. Thank God. Nobody has told me ever that I've had to look a certain way. I've done that to myself. So what I decided to do is write a list of 10 things that I love about myself physically and 10 things that are non-physical. And anytime I'm in that trap of negative thinking, I have to write it down. And what that is recognizing and giving gratitude for the vessel that we're in. And also it's self-knowledge, it's self-awareness. It's becoming aware of what your gifts are, or what's been given to you that you can be so grateful for. And that will take you away from the negative patterns of what you don't have. And I think that is so important, to lift up what you do have and what your gifts are, because everybody is special. Yeah, it's a wonderful exercise, I think.
A lot of people do like gratitude journals and things like that, but just sometimes that sounds a little daunting and overwhelming. Like, here's my journal, I'm supposed to write everything I'm grateful for, and that kind of gets overwhelming. But just making a list of 10 things, that sounds so doable. And and it definitely will. I mean, if from the inside out, really, just being grateful in and of itself, I find extraordinarily helpful in kind of getting through my day. And every time I show up at work, every day I get to work, the first thing I do, people pray. I'd like to say that it's a form of prayer where I just sit down and I just thank the heavens and God for the ability to be there and for the opportunities that I've had. So both inside and outside, for the body and for the opportunity. But having that sounds like such a great idea, something that anybody can do. 10 things.
And you might struggle in the beginning. I tell people some days I really struggle because I'm in that negative headspace where I can't see anything positive, and it forces you to look. Like, I will literally go look in the mirror and look at myself, or look at my hands, or just look at my body and say, what am I grateful for? Physically, 10 things. Non-physically, 10 things. And you start to realize, like I'll list 2 of each right now, and you can do the same if you want. 2 things physically I like about myself right now. Love my eyebrows, love my height. Those are the 2 things that just came to my mind, as simple as that. 2 non-physical things. I love that I'm compassionate. And I also love that I'm rigorously honest, to a fault even. That's fine. I'd rather be that than not honest.
Yeah.
So the alternative is not an option for me. So I love those things about myself. And then, they can be that simple. It can literally be that you painted your nails purple and you like purple. You like your purple nails. Tick, there's one thing.
Now I need to get purple nail polish because that sounds awesome.
All right, so 2 things physically you like about yourself and 2 things non-physically. Let's hear it.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, I like my collarbone. That's physical. Mm-hmm. And I like my gray hair, actually, growing in my gray. I don't know if you can see.
Perfect.
And non-physical, I like that I uphold kindness above all else. I think that's my daily, really. And
that's great.
Work ethic. I think I wake up and make sure I get shit done. I like that.
See, and when you list those things, you start to realize you deserve all the opportunities that are being presented to you. They wouldn't come your way if you didn't deserve them. So then you have to go into whatever opportunity that is saying, I deserve to be here and I'm going to do the best I can. And it becomes, strangely that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we kind of wrap it up a little bit, you're obviously cooking, but what are your favorite spots that you've been ordering in or ordering takeout from? I know you were advocating for, you could tell us about that too as well.
Yeah, sure.
Is it a nonprofit, or is it a nonprofit?
It's an organization that helps with restaurant businesses that are suffering, especially right now. It's called roar.ny.
Roar.ny.
And
the notes.
Yes. And I used to be a waitress before I found success as an actress. And I was a waitress forever. I mean, since I was 14 till, somewhere in my mid 20s. And, and it was fun. I had a blast most times. And I know, the struggles that come with that, being in the service industry. You're making tips off of, it's basically people's generosity, and if they're not feeling generous, then you struggle to pay your rent, and that stuff is really hard. And especially right now with all these restaurants closing or only doing takeout and delivery, their staff has been cut by like 90%, and these people all of a sudden have no job. And this organization really helps by giving those restaurants and those staff members and all of that money. And it's just something that was very close to my heart, because I remember those days of struggle, and I was in those days of struggle for well over a decade. And I've been trying to order from a lot of mom and pop, what I call mom and pop businesses, small businesses. And since I've been cooking a lot, I haven't ordered as much, but I will go to like the local farmers market or the local bodega stores instead of the big chains and things like that, and try to get my produce and groceries from those places. One place I love in Brooklyn, I live in Brooklyn. One place I really love is called Mezakoyakan, and it is one of my favorite restaurants. I was a regular there. I knew a lot of the staff. It's just the best food ever. And those are meals I spoil myself with, because they are not in line with what I'm doing dietary wise. But it's always good to have a little fun sometimes. Come on now.
Right.
And
you were mentioning that earlier.
It's, balance, right? Balance.
Yep. Balance.
So I'll order from them occasionally. There's another little place called Concord Hill in Brooklyn that I'm loving a lot. Oh. I found that place, it's near Mezakoyakan, and I found that place right before the lockdown happened. So they've got a lot of good vegetables there. If you're into meat, they do have a great grass-fed burger, and they get a lot of their stuff farm to table, which is excellent. So they're also a small business supporting other small businesses and small farms.
Great. Small farms.
So yeah, my advice is like wherever you are out there, try to support the smaller businesses, because these bigger chains, while they are suffering, they are not suffering as much as the smaller places. And it's about community, and just help where you can. And if you can't afford it, that's okay too. Like you don't have to be some, rock star to like go and help out. You can just go and if you need some carrots, go to a smaller store and get some carrots. It can be that simple, and even just sending out, if you want to call it a prayer or a thought or just like some loving energy towards these places, that's also important.
All right. Yeah, I've noticed around where I live, there are some CSAs that are starting up for the summer that you can get your basket of veggies and stuff like that too, supporting your local farmer in that way as well. And lastly, you were definitely promoting, what is it? No Kid Hungry? What's it called?
Yes. No Kid Hungry.
No Kid Hungry.
Now, these folks are fantastic. They're a larger organization. And what was happening, or what was brought to my attention by some friends of mine, was that, and I knew this, but with everything going on, it's like I didn't focus on it right away. But it was told to me that with all the schools closing, a lot of children, that's where they get their food. Like they're one, unfortunately, some of them, they're one meal of the day or their most nutritious meal of the day. And without those schools being open, these kids aren't getting their food. They're not getting meals. And that breaks my heart, because nothing breaks me more than seeing a child suffer. That is just, it's unforgivable. It's just unacceptable. And so this organization, I've been trying to work with them a lot to get people to donate whatever they can. It can be $1. Anything helps. We'll make meals and deliver them and send them out to these kids. And so that these kids are able to get fed, even though they're not able to attend school. So it's really important. And then, of course, when the lockdown isn't happening, the No Kid Hungry works with these schools, and they're also providing the meals there. So it's important to like keep this up, and keep these organizations that do this, funded. And I'm sure there are many other smaller organizations that do similar things, and that's important to get involved with too. And I'm sure, in the day of the internet, like we are, there are ways to find local organizations wherever you are that you can help. You can help with, in a smaller communities.
So No Kid Hungry, I'll put a link on there, but I think they have like social media pages where it's really easy to click and donate. I know I have. And
yes,
if people are tuning in, so where can people find you?
Well, I have an Instagram. That's it. No Twitter, no Facebook. One was enough, guys. I had to get rid of the other stuff. Instagram, it's just my name, Jaimie Alexander, Jaimie Alexander. And I've been posting some recipes. If you go into my highlights, you can find organizations to donate to if you are so inclined. And also just recipes. If you want to check out some of the healing food I've been making, you can do that. Other than that, I've just been, posting some of my daily routine and also some blind spot content, because we'll be back on the air May 7th.
That's right. Blind Spot. Fun times. Season 5.
Yes.
Are you excited about seeing this go up now? Or,
well,
is it, right?
Yes.
It's the end of an era.
It is. It's the end of it. It's really interesting. I love the ending. You were there. It's pretty amazing. For me, a lot of people ask me what my favorite episodes are, and the only episode I've seen start to finish was the pilot. I don't watch myself in anything I do. So it's hard for me to...
I even knew that.
Yeah, I only do it when we have to use ADR, which is a voice dub. Like say, if something drops in the background and it messes up the soundtrack, we have to go in and dub our voices. And so I'll see bits and parts of the show for sure, but I have never... And I've seen a couple fight sequences, obviously, the samurai sword fight.
I think I forced you to watch most of them. So.
Which is totally fine, because it was mostly you. But I don't watch myself. So it's just interesting now that it's coming to an end. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. And I'm just really grateful that I survived the thing and that, I met you and I met some of the greatest people I've ever known by working on that show. And, I miss the crew, obviously, a lot.
Yeah.
But again, it was a beautiful send-off to a very hard 5 years of work. And so it ended well.
I would have to agree. Well, Jaimie, thank you so much. This has been really awesome. I did find out some things I didn't know about you. And I look forward to seeing you in the not too distant future.
Absolutely.
And, be well, stay well, keep training and eating.
Likewise, buddy.
And posting,
I will.
please. Inspiration.
I definitely will.
All right.
I definitely will. Love you, bud.
Love you back.
All discussions on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and are not meant to replace medical advice. Contrary to popular belief, Heidi is not a doctor or a nutritionist or an astronaut. Although, that would be kind of cool. Heidi, maybe you should be an astronaut.